Hey guys, this is a little interview with myself, of course, since no one else is here. But I just want to say I've been inspired recently by this guy on YouTube. He's got this great channel. Some of the stuff is so hardcore, I can't believe YouTube allows it, but he toes the line. He's demonetized sometimes. It happens, you know, when you're doing like harsh content, stuff like that. He generally talks about torture and like serial killers, stuff like that, but also cryptids. So I gave him a shout, and yeah, so this is to Shrouded Hand. Respect, you know, I appreciate like basically the last 4 or 5 months of my life I've been watching the channel non-stop, and it's been pretty crazy. But yeah, I've watched pretty much every single video within like boundaries. Anyway, let's get cracking. So some of his stories and some of his videos were like kind of personal to him. So some of the stuff that happened to him as a kid, you know, as a child growing up and stuff like that, nightmares, monsters on the bed, various stuff like that. But what I have is a Ouija board story. So he's done a Ouija board story as well. But in my case, it was like a homemade one. So it was a friend of mine from school. His name was Jerome. He was a French dude. And he said we should try it. And we didn't actually have the real Ouija board, so he made one up. In the end, the glass wouldn't like go around. We have like a half pint glass on the table, and it wouldn't actually slot around. So we had to use talcum powder. He drew it all out by hand and all that stuff. It was like taped together. It was very bish bash bosh. But either way, this is what happened. So basically we did a DIY like Ouija board in my bedroom. It didn't work at first, like I said. Then we had to put the talcum powder and stuff like that. But then we made contact with this boy or a spirit or something like that. I think it was a child. And after our conversation, I can't remember what we were talking about and stuff like that, because it was like a kid or whatever, and we're just trying it out. We kind of gave up, right? So we wanted to call at night, and then we kept on asking it to leave. So this is something you have to do. You engage with spirit, and then you have to ask it to leave. And then basically we tried like several times, it wouldn't leave. So we just basically like quit. We left it at that, which you shouldn't do, but he wouldn't go away. Guess he was bored or lonely or whatever, you know, and then he got like sucked into our little vibe. The various nights after that, I was like so freaked out in my room, I couldn't really get much sleep. I would actually go into my dad's like bedroom and like sleep on the floor, or share the bed with him, whatever. I can't remember. It was like a long time ago. I mean, I was like, you know, 12, 13 or something at the time. But I just remember there was like this eerie presence in my room, and I just like couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't shake it, so I couldn't leave, couldn't sleep. But basically, yeah, that happened for a few nights, maybe up to a week, and then it was kind of gone. This is in Indonesia, by the way, so I've got a couple of Indonesian stories. Another one I call the ghost tree story. So I had quite a few friends, because it was a very big school, and we're kind of like into like parties and stuff like that, like drinking, some drugs, smoking cigarettes, stuff like that. But anyway, when I was around her house one time, she told me about they had a tree in the garden, and apparently it was haunted. That's what like the maids and the servants said, because we all like servants over there, you know. It's nothing like racist, just like what happens with like expats. So like whenever a servant would sit by the tree, it was like they would become possessed by something, and then as soon as like they were kind of going about their daily business, they were like a different person. Sometimes it would last like days or weeks or whatever. I think some extreme cases would probably have to get an exorcism or some kind of cleansing or whatever. But that always stayed with me because it was like a temporary possession. So that tree's probably got lots of spirits or something. Maybe it's a very old tree because it's Indonesia, so it's like, you know, thousands of years old, hundreds of years. I don't know exactly, I can't remember. But that was just like a freaky thing I thought I'd mention, just because, like, you know, it was pretty creepy. I mean, I gotta say, like, I didn't want to go sitting in that tree. So let's go on to one of the next videos. So one time I filmed some crazy weather, like a weather phenomenon is called, and later someone said it was like heat lightning is called, which is an electrical storm, but in London we don't really have those. So that's why one of my hippy dippy friends, he told me that we're on like ley lines and it's energy, and there's possible UFO sightings in that area. There's possibly a guy that posted one from our local park, but this is my back garden. So me and my mate Geese were watching Train Spotting 2, which was terrible, and then halfway through we went out for a cigarette, and then he saw that stuff in the sky. I've made a video about it already, so I'll probably show some clips of that. I kind of talked through it already. Like, I mean, I didn't really see a UFO, but at one point something flew right at the camera and it was kind of really freaky. So who knows what exactly happened there. Then later on, my mate, he basically sent it to one of his UFO buddies, and apparently he found like a UFO hiding there. Now there's this whole theory that UFOs basically like get energy from, you know, solar, gas or whatever, like volcanoes, heat, lava, and in this case it was an electrical storm. Maybe it was causing it, we don't really know. All I know is that all the major planes, the standard planes, were all detoured. They all went like different route and stuff like that. But then there are these other planes that kind of look like spy planes or military or scientific or something. They just had like a different flashing light. That's why they didn't look like the commercial airlines you see in the sky. And you never really know. I mean, I was a big believer my whole life. I still believe in UFOs and all that stuff. Whether we capture that night, I don't know. Another thing that was really eerie was there was this weird rumble in the sky. So you'd associate like lightning with rumble, right? With like, I mean, thunder. But there was no real thunder. It was just like something way off in the distance, and it wasn't like normal thunder at all. It was kind of like a really like bassy rumble. So who knows, maybe something was going down that night, and of course we never told about it. But yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty cool. I filmed it. It actually carried on for a few more nights. I captured some more footage, but it wasn't as good as that initial night. There was like crystal clear. You could really see the lightning up the clouds. And again, no thunder, no rain, no storm, which is very unusual because it's England. So it's like raining all the time. Right, now we'll talk about some New Zealand stories that I heard, some great stuff. So I haven't actually done any of these in interview form yet. But I was traveling around the North Island with a mate in a road trip. I was researching the project that I was doing over there, which is like the TANIWHA. So that's a supernatural sea creature, lizard, dragon, whatever you want to call it, serpent. Throughout history and all that, various cultures have got it, like Chinese, Japanese, Asians in general. And in this case, I stopped by this one place called TIKI. Now, I was friends with someone in Wellington, and then it was her sister who basically used to live in Wellington. They worked together, and then she retired out to TIKI. And this population was like literally 50 people. I mean, it was crazy. Like one school, one church, one bar, just like houses and stuff like that. So we ended up on this beach, and it was like a nice day. It was windy. The beach was like really derelict and stuff like that, but it was a cool place. And there's a really big hill right next to it. So my mate's attention kept on drawing up to the hill and be like, yo, dude, why don't we like hike up that hill? Like it will give us something to do. And I always had an eerie like bad feeling about it. Like I didn't want to go there. I've already been researching supernatural stuff like TANIWHA and all that. And then eventually found out some of the locals that it was actually a haunted hill, that there used to be a pa, which is a fortified Maori village way back when. And there was some kind of tribal warfare. So the village was wiped out, or there was some bad juju, and there was some ghosts remaining, basically. And what happened was that workers tried to build a fence like around it, so no tourists or anybody could go there, locals or non-locals, just to really be aware of it. I think they're putting up signs and stuff like that. They couldn't work at night because there was too many like accidents and hauntings and visibility issues and all that stuff. As far as like people getting injured or possibly killed, I can't really remember. I think there were like some injuries or sort of like trauma and stuff like that. Whether someone died, I don't know. It was a while back when they did that. It was probably like 70s, 80s. But then they knew it was like tapu, which is like sacred. So you just don't even go there. It's like sealed off for the public or for everyone. Yeah, no visitors allowed, especially nighttime, like I mentioned. Yeah, he wanted to go out there, but then I told him not. So it's basically like a cursed village, and I've actually done a World War II video about a cursed village, but also in the film itself that I was developing, it was all about basically builders coming in on building on top of an ancient village like that, and then basically curses and juju and like bad karma and all that stuff happens. So I guess like the ghosts don't really like people there. Definitely spooky, but that was like a really cool little trip. Basically that was like one of the most supernatural areas where I was. Now the best ghost story that I heard in New Zealand was this guy and his girlfriend, they bought this property, and within like weeks or months or whatever, they started having problems. Like the girl would have chest pains, and she couldn't explain it and stuff like that. It would always happen at night. So eventually, like after months and months, they found out that it was actually built on an ancient burial site or a war site. So obviously the spirits weren't really happy. And apparently there was a Maori warrior that was in the house with them, and he didn't want to leave. So then an exorcist had to come in, and how they do it over there is that it's a bit of the Maori sort of mythology and, you know, belief system, and then also like shamans, or if you will. and then also the Christianity side. So he had like a Bible, but then he was talking like in Maori or something like that. I mean, it was again a long time ago, but I've got a video on YouTube somewhere if you can ever find it. I think the guy's name was David at the time. It's in ROTORUA, and that was a really cool story because I mean, it took him a while to get to the point. It was like 20 minutes, but I had like goosebumps like the whole time. It was so creepy. But yeah, they eventually, like after they got rid of it, then it was all fine, and then they lived happily ever after. But the fact is, the landlord never told them about the ancient burial site, because obviously if you tell that to people trying to buy a property and, you know, they don't want to buy it, then obviously it's bad news. Let's talk about TANIWHA stuff real quick. So I don't know if I've addressed this before, but there's a couple bits of news that was happening when I was out there, and one of the major ones is that south of Auckland there is this highway that they were building, and they basically had to detour around this whole swamp because all the local Maori iwi, which is like the tribe, they said that their TANIWHA was there, their sacred TANIWHA, and it would be like bad trouble if they built through there, over there, whatever, you know, there'd be like curses and I don't know what else. But either way, so the news is that they actually went around it. I think the mayor at the time, Auckland, was very respectful and did it. So New Zealand is like a constant back and forth between the Maori and, you know, the Pākehā, the white people, the colonists, whatever you want to call them. I mean, they're all intermingled now, but there's still some issues, you know, like as far as their beliefs and stuff are concerned. They're just trying to protect their identity, which I get, and that's totally fine. Now, many rivers around New Zealand are also considered dangerous, and they have like riptides or currents or whatever, like whirlpools and stuff, so people drown. So in a way, a lot of these like legends and myths, like about monsters and all these kind of scary, like creepy stories for kids and stuff, is basically to warn people about certain areas. Now, what doesn't make sense is that they also say it's if you ever see a log going upstream, which is impossible because of the downstream current, whatever, that is basically TANIWHA, or it's like present in that area, if you will. So I'm not saying a TANIWHA is literally a log, but it's maybe like an energy, or, you know, it could be part of a creature or a spirit or something like that. Which brings me to in Wellington, the capital, basically is like there's two TANIWHA there in the harbour, according to ancient legend, and the story goes that the two TANIWHA were kind of friends, and then one wanted to leave or got depressed or sad or something like that, and then swam out to the ocean, and then the other one kind of stayed and then formed one of the mountain ranges, one of the hills around there. And I used to go up to that hill. I actually lived on like Mount Vic, so Mount Victoria, where they shot bits of Lord of the Rings. It's just like in between the city centre and Miramar, the basically Peter Jackson land and the airport and all the rest. So I thought that was pretty cool. Again, like it's a little bit like mythology for kids and stuff like that, but I researched all this stuff, so it was all kind of good knowledge to have. Now, one last sort of Loch Ness TANIWHA-ish story, whereas I came across this teacher in WHAKATANE, which is basically like on the East Coast, North Island, and that was also one of my favorite places to go. So I just showed up like the end of the day when the tourist board was like, can I talk to anybody about TANIWHA or Maori mythology, stuff like that. So this guy, he was willing to see me like the next day. I actually got invited to have dinner and stuff like that with them, because they're very welcoming to foreigners. Basically, if you're doing something about their culture and appreciating their way of life, then they kind of embrace you and take you in. And that's what happened to me quite a lot. I did that all over where I was. I was always trying to get my way in, and, you know, I was there out of like total respect and admiration, hence the 4-hour tattoo, which was like super painful and I nearly collapsed afterwards. This is just to show how serious I was, but it was also part of my whole spiritual journey for being there. So as he explained it, is he was kind of a teacher, and he went to Scotland, to Loch Ness, and to see if there was any, like, you know, true stories about the NESSIE or whatever, because TANIWHA is kind of like a NESSIE type in certain situations, like a plesiosaur. And there was a slight rain and all that, and all the other tourists, they went inside, yet he stayed out in the boat, and it was a bit foggy, and apparently NESSIE came up to him, and basically they communicated telepathically. And the way you do is you provide an offering for a lot of these, kind of out of respect and to the spirit world and all stuff, and all he had was a banana. So he basically gave NESSIE a banana. I know it sounds a bit ridiculous, he wrote a kiddie book, but, you know, part of me like believes it and wants to believe it, because that was part of my whole journey out there. And then like the NESSIE lifted up a flipper, took it down, and then she disappeared, and then that was his story. And he actually wrote like a little kiddies book, and it's still, you know, like quite popular with all the children, I guess, over there now. But he called me Mr. Lasco, which was really funny. I thought that was really sweet. But yeah, that was pretty much it for that. Let's see, I think that's it for all the New Zealand stories. All right, well, that was just like a quick one. I guess the other ones will have to wait because I've still got some more filming to do. So I might do like a little mini edit of what I've done with the cryptids interviews already. So I did my NAM cryptids, World War II cryptids, but I think I'm gonna save that for another video. All right, hope you enjoyed and learned something. And again, shout out to Shrouded Hand, who's going through some tough times right now. I wanted to collaborate, but you know, I totally understand. Either way, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. He's gonna do his thing. So that's about it. All right, peace, cha-cha.